Good morning, everyone. From CES Las Vegas, I have our good friend Blaine Bartlett. Blaine, how was the New Year's for you?
The new year is actually it's rocking. It really is. It came in with a bang. Had snow. We had all kinds of good weather. Very quiet. All things considered, and life
Yeah,
is good.
and along with that came that learn.blainebartlett.com/DAY. What's the DAY for again?
DAY, design a year that designed you in return.
That's
So
awesome.
it's off with a bang.
It's definitely aligned with my what I call new day challenge. So we have
Yep.
some synergy between what we're doing. And speaking of synergy, we're blessed to have Executive Vice President at CIBR, cyber.com. And obviously we've had a few guests on, and more we know this is going to be an incredible issue. It's interesting as I begin. Great Gibson, welcome to Office Hours. But Grant, I've become more aware of cybersecurity and the critical business and life issues that are surrounding cybersecurity. It is difficult to watch TV, to drive on the road without thinking about, wow, if somebody hacks this, every time I go through a green light, I'm like, wow, if somebody makes all the lights in America red at the same time, forget 9/11.
Right.
We're talking about it's a serious issue. And we saw in Dallas some issues with the grid and, a variety of other things, water. So, I just want to let everyone know that people like Grant, as I always say, it's the entrepreneurs that are going to save the world. We just need to do things to preserve time in order to get the entrepreneurs enough time to figure things out, to make sure that we stay safe and sound and we have enough resources. How critical is cybersecurity, not only today, but for the future?
I mean, it's probably one of the more critical things that we're going to deal with. The next generation, our generation, we're going to deal with this. It's a generational problem. It's not a fix. It's entrepreneurs are going to make some progress this century or this decade, but I think it's longer than that. Now, I want to think about it for a minute. We love technology. We like things to talk to each other. We like the convenience we get. We don't always like the privacy it takes away from us, and we certainly don't like the risk that it exposes. In the early 90s and aughts, when we talked about cybersecurity, we were worried about our data, right? Because people get our data. But now it's Colonial Pipeline shut down gas in the Southwest, right? Because it's now physical things. It's now things, like you said, if all the lights turned red, if all the lights turned green, how many car accidents would we have across the US? So now it's not just data, it's not just our money, it's not just our ability to process information. It's the physical things that interact with us in the world that are affected by this. So it's different. We've always been in the business of creating opportunity, right? Especially as entrepreneurs, that's what we do, right? We create opportunity. Whether we're at home with our family, we're creating opportunities for our family. Whether we're at work, creating opportunities for work. Whether we're in our social environments, creating opportunities socially. We create opportunities. We've never been in a position where the technology that we were using created these opportunities could affect us if somebody misused it the way that we are with the internet. And cybersecurity is that protection mechanism, and we don't create the protections as quickly as we create the opportunities, and that's where the problem lies.
Now there's a technical positioning that you're actually, I think, on the pointy edge of the spear on, and it's called Log4j. And people aren't familiar with that terminology, but there is a huge thing about that. So can you talk a little bit about the Log4j vulnerability?
Yeah. Log4j is a software program. It's open source. Yeah. It was developed by some guys to help people with servers log communication and keep logs of what was happening, right? Pretty simple, small, non-discrete piece of software. It's nothing flashy. It's nothing people think about, oh, this is the latest and greatest technology. It's actually some of the oldest logging technology, some of the oldest technology there is for IT. And so it seems very innocuous. But there's a bug in there, and if somebody puts in a string of characters and the program receives a string for characters, it will try to process that data instead of logging it, right? And so it'll try to run some code, and it's code that can come from anywhere because that's the nature of the internet, right? You can inject that code from anywhere, and it can have anything in it, and it can tell to do anything at once. So that's dangerous. Most people, when they originally heard about this, they're like, "Well, I don't use logging software; it's not important to me, right?" But what we found out very quickly is a lot of other companies have said, hey, I need this functionality. Rather than build it from scratch, which is going to cost me time and money, let me just use something that's already there. And this one's pretty stable and pretty popular. So thousands and thousands and thousands of companies that have built software have just gone and taken this little piece of code and put it in their code to simplify the process, which means that everybody's affected. You go into the security research community, and you can see on day one when they first discovered this, people tested against Apple, and they got a trigger, and people tested against Amazon and Google, and the list goes on and on and on. The companies that were affected. Now, that's not to say that you were in danger with Apple. Apple had plenty of other protections in place to protect against this, right? Your data wasn't in danger with Apple. They were very, very well protected. But the problem is you don't know who's protected, who's not protected. You don't know who's going to catch it. You know, if your company's out there and they've taken the time to look into this and make sure they're safe from it, that's a really good thing. And if a company has assumed I don't use Log4j, they should reevaluate that assumption, because with all the software you use, there is a likelihood that everybody's touched by this. As a matter of fact, I believe the director of CISA said this affects everybody. This affects everyone, and likely it does.
You know, speaking of affecting everyone, number one, I want to thank you for your service as a retired vet with the Marine Corps, even served on the bomb squad, you know, understanding security extremely well. There's been 1.8 million or more attacks since December 15th, cyber attacks. But I'd like to ask a question that maybe a lot of people may not ask. And I'm sitting here listening to the enormous amount of exposure that we create every time we automate, utilize AI, any sort of connectivity with the internet, Wi-Fi, etc. There's still the final stage of what do we do to put everyone in an emotional and mental ease that we don't want to attack, right? That we sit there. You see more attacks than anyone. You've been in the conflictual type of experience, you know, probably since you've been 18. And, you know, I'm blessed because my whole existence and job is to put people at ease and to be at ease. And to, you know, I have no attacks in my universe. And I read the Course in Miracles to make sure of it, and Goddard and Dyer and all these things for that mindset. How do we shift the mindset of the collective, you know, so that we don't use our guns in the wrong way, we don't use our technology in the wrong way? Or is it just human nature and the ego that, since you have so much experience, we'll always have attacks and judgments, and we're always going to be counteracting?
Well, you know, you can't look at it any different than any other type of crime, right? Is crime ever going to go away? No. But we put sufficient controls in place as a society to prevent crime. And that's from their social controls that as a group, we say, hey, crime is not okay, right? And that goes a long way. We put policing controls in place to help us mitigate crime, right? And we put we put deterrents in place, right? If you commit a crime and you get caught, these are the things that are going to happen to you, right? Cybersecurity, you know, for a young man or woman in this country or another country to look at cybercrime and see that as the same thing as stealing from Walmart, they don't look at it that way, right? We haven't had that societal change to say, hey, these crimes affect us the same way that they might in a Walmart, and you shouldn't steal from Walmart, right? So there has to be that societal change.
Do you think, do more men or more women commit cyber crimes?
Well, that's more men get caught. We know that. It's hard to say that it's hard. There's no hard facts, right? There's no hard science and numbers say it's men, right? It's likely men because men dominate the IT industry, so it's likely that they dominate the cybercrime industry as well. And so that's likely, but that's not to say it's exclusive to men by any means. There are plenty of women out there on the good side and bad side of this, and you got to watch out for them too.
I mean, a lot of what you're talking about, and Dave's question here, I think, points directly to this. It's a question in part of education. So, how do we educate folks to understand that cybercrime is in fact a crime? And so, in your role as the chair of the National Initiative for Cybersecurity Education, what are you doing, and how is that? How's that initiative actually taking hold at this point?
Right. So first off, I'm not the chair of that committee anymore for that organization. I was the chair. But
we give Blaine really bad notes to make sure he is discredited, because I don't want him to be.
It's a test to see if I read the notes.
No, it's a test. Is to make sure that you don't look smarter than me.
Right. Fair enough. But at the end of the day, the answer is we have been really focused on a couple of factors. One is educating business, right? Educating business about this is what has been really big, right? To make sure they're aware, and there are a lot of organizations doing that, trying to do that in government, non-government entities, entrepreneurs, everybody. The other one is adult population. There's a shortage of workers, and so trying to get out to workers that may see job displacement in the next couple of years. If you look out at the marketplace and what technology is doing to the job market, you're going to see some job displacement over the next decade. And trying to get people to consider switching jobs. If you're worried about raising the minimum wage, if that's a concern that you have, get into cybersecurity. Get into cybersecurity right now, because we can take care of that for you. We need you. And in 6 months to a year, you can be in a cybersecurity job. It may be a starting, but it probably pays better than minimum wage, right? So if you've got a listener out there that's concerned about that, come talk to me. Reach out. We'll set you in the right direction. And the third initiative is K-12, right? We really need to get into K-12. We really need to talk about computer science in K-12. Vocational programs have done wonders for our labor force over the last 100 years. Right, getting them into trades and things like that. Think of cybersecurity as a trade. So getting into the schools and starting vocational programs that get people into cybersecurity. You don't need a 4-year degree to do this, right? It certainly helps, but you don't need it. If you get started at a young age, because that's what the hackers do. They don't have 4-year degrees. They're getting started in high school. They're hacking, and then when they get out there, they're making money off hacking. The same is true for the good side. And so getting into the K-12 and starting to get that mindset there will have a big difference, and will help make those societal changes in the future.
Last question, real quick, Grant. Who are you working with? Who's your ideal client, or who are your clients?
Our ideal client, everybody's ideal client, is that multi-million-dollar contract, right? But the reality is, we can be most beneficial, and there's the most need in the small to medium-sized business market, right? And that's where we can make an impact. These are the guys that are most vulnerable. You might even not think of your electric co-op as a small to medium-sized business, right? But likely they actually are a small to medium-sized business, and that's somebody that we can talk to and we can help and understand cybersecurity. But it's that market where, if you think that this is out of reach, if you think cybersecurity is out of reach, it's too technical, it's too expensive, simple things go a long way. You don't need to spend $1 million a year on cybersecurity. You just need to have a security mindset. And we can help you figure that out and navigate what your risks are and figure out how to mitigate them.
Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate Grant Gibson. Come join us again, Executive Vice President of Cyber, CIBR.com. We appreciate it, and thank you for keeping us secure again. And thank you for your service.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. See you later.
Great having you on the show, Grant. Take care.
It's the new cyber marine here. He's keeping us safe again. Some guys just have it in their blood to protect other people, and it's so nice to have him
for
there.
sure.
We're blessed to have him. All right, we're rocking and rolling early on here, and it's Joshua Hicks coming on, independent certified health coach, and really excited to talk about transformation with his breakthrough story of health, and it's interesting breaking through, especially, in a non-negotiable like health. I'm going to repeat the same thing for those that, don't watch this every day. When you're healthy, you get as many wishes as you want. And I believe wishes are the greatest asset. And the more that, by the way, Blaine, I read Goddard, thanks to you, the more I realize how valuable a wish is. But if you're unhealthy, you only have one wish. The other thing about health is coherence, that people want to be healthy, they just don't remember what to do every day, and they definitely don't do it even if they do remember. And there's an aggregate effect. When we do healthy things, it aggregates and compounds on itself. And when we do unhealthy things, we put ourselves at dis-ease and it aggregates. So I'd love to start, Josh, with, your story, but also in line with, where and how is a breakthrough, so that you, I think, utilize coherence in the positive aggregate effect in health instead of the negative one.
Yeah, good morning. It's good to be here with you, gentlemen. Thanks so much. Well, first of all, health is wealth in so many areas. And, being really intrinsically awakened to the habits that you're currently living in and breaking those habit loops and creating new ones. I was 60 pounds overweight. I was struggling in all areas of life, financially, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Found myself standing in the middle of a gym one day with the common misconception I'm going to outwork a bad diet. When a guy walked up from me, a stranger from across the globe, he was traveling from Malaysia on a family emergency, and he looked at me and said, "You remind me a lot of myself, and I'd love to share a lifestyle transformational program that really helped me." At the point in time, when your health is poor, and Dave, you really hit on this, right? I mean, you get as many wishes as you want when you're congruent with your health. Luck has nothing to do with it, but consistency has everything to do with it. What you're consistent at, you'll get more of. So I was there, and I wasn't in a place ready to receive it. Now, I had been praying and begging and crying for breakthrough and change, and it was looking me right in the face, and I almost missed it. He sent me an email that day and really opened up my eyes to what healthy living looked like. And I started really creating some new changes that were sustainable, right? Because diets in themselves, we know are what? They're unsustainable. In fact, to the point of 85% of self-contained diets lead to the weight come back 1 or 2 years or less. But when we can recreate the brain, if you will, we can retrain the brain to build some habits that are more sustainable and long-term, your weight then will follow. And so what I did was had a series of transformations that started with personal development that then led, when I had that personal development increase, then I was able to, have that physical transformation follow. When you're not in a healthy place in your frame of mind, your physical transformation will follow that unhealthy state of mind. So that's a little bit where I am today.
Yeah, that last piece, Josh, I hope everybody really paid attention to that, because a lot of times, in the coaching work that I do, people are looking to the externalities. If I can just fix the externality, I'm going to, my developmental focus is on what's going on outside of me. I got to develop myself first. There's nobody out there but me. There's no thing out there but me. And all I'm seeing is a reflection of what's going on internally manifested externally. And this idea of lifestyle. Practice. The adage, practice makes perfect. Practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes habits. And we gotta. Most people don't know what they're practicing. They really don't have a clue what they're practicing. It just shows up in their results, and they go, I don't like this. Well, practice something different. And that requires discipline. It requires awareness, and it requires what you're speaking to. And I want you to just kind of take this a little bit further here, because you're really kind of on a mission here.
Yeah.
We got the backstory. Where does it go from here?
Well, 74% of the American population is overweight. 40% are obese. 77% are in debt. 21% about that, approximately, and those numbers are always staggering and changing, can't even pay their bills. But you see how they work hand in hand? Mm-hmm. Your health will follow your finances. And people often talk to me about how they don't have time. And I really try to awaken them to see that, let's look at your schedule first. They don't even have a schedule. Because when you can look at your schedule will tell you what's important to you. We'll sit in front of the TV for an hour and watch another hour when it's not moving us forward at all in our health or our journey. Feelings aren't facts. We have to be open, conscious, and curious to grow. But we live below the line. And this is where we struggle. And so below the line thinking is how the brain is wired, right? We're defensive, closed-minded, and have the willingness and need to always be right. So our fists are clenched, or we're sitting like this. These are common postures and reflections of how we feel. Like we're on the defense. But when we can open up change our grip, our life starts to follow suit. And so my mission is very direct. I want to help people understand that, what you argue for, you get to keep, and what you tolerate, you get more of.
Yeah.
You got some,
Argue for your limitations and they will be yours.
You guys got both of you now have great ways of articulating, very similar beliefs of enjoying the consistent, persistent pursuit of your own potential. But you also, shifted your mindset from, a scarce world of things happening to you as a victim. I was blessed with Warren Moon a few years ago to teach some kids at the White House and in the Thomas Jefferson Library and meet with the Surgeon General. And it was amazing, when I looked at what are our biggest health concerns in America. Smoking, at that time there wasn't vaping, I think, but smoking, obesity, and skincare. And I said, what's the secret? How are we going to solve this issue for our children? And he said, it's really simple. We have to teach them what I now call coherence. We have to teach them to remember what to eat, what to put on their suntan lotion, and what the detrimental aggregate effect of, nicotine and smoking in the lungs will do to them. How do we, with the younger people, and I find this difficult in business and in, being a father, and I know Blaine has experience with this as well. It's very difficult to have someone understand the aggregate effect without experiencing it.
Yeah, 100%.
And the problem with that is that it's too late. And I always say that when you have good habits, Josh, we want instant results, so it's not going to happen. And when you don't get the instant results, you quit. And unfortunately, when we have bad habits, when we're eating the wrong things, when we're not moving the body enough, when we're smoking the wrong things or snorting the wrong things or drinking the wrong things, we don't expect any result. And guess what? It doesn't come until you're 90% of the way down and you weigh 300 pounds. And it seems like it was overnight, but no, it started when you were 15.
Right.
Eating empty calories out of bags in your pantry or going through the drive-through too many times or whatever it may be. How do we help this is a great business, but how do we help people experience the aggregate effect without actually experiencing the aggregate effect?
Well, that's a beautiful question. And, for our listeners, I want you to understand something, that you're on a journey. This is your story, nobody else's. And so you have to first own that. You can't have expertise without experience. And that's the biggest struggle and limitation that we fall on victim to, right? It's self-doubt. People will talk themselves into something all the way up to the point that they talk themselves right out of it before never trying. And food is used as a primary source of comfort for that. We eat our feelings. You just said it. Eating empty calories. Why? Because it's extremely processed and highly addictive. That's what America's being fed with. So how I do that, it's very simple. I create authentic relationships by meeting people where they're at, letting them set the expectations, and I set the standard and course correct along the way while they set the pace, showing them that, one, don't get stuck in a comparative reality. You don't know what else somebody's carrying or what they're going through. So this is about you and really bringing everything back to them. And I also make sure when I have a conversation with people, I have them repeat to me verbally what they're putting out and projecting on their bodily language, right? So I want to hear you say it, because as you can actually verbally speak that into existence, you'll have a cognitive change, right? That will actually open your eyes to what you're actually saying and doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The language creates reality. It also reflects reality. So the beautiful thing about the human form is that everybody's got one, and we carry it with us all the time. And if we're really paying attention, I'm certified as a master somatic coach. Richard Strozzi and I go back a long way. But the idea of physiology, and I love where you're going with this, energy is contained in a form, and how it gets expressed is what we want to pay attention to, because I'm an energetic being. How am I expressing my life force? And it comes across as this: it's contractive or it's open. Is there a thriving or surviving component to this? And I love where you're coming from, and I love actually the work that you're doing in the space that you're doing it in, because as a nation, we're calorically overfed and nutritionally undernourished, and it's habituated. It literally is habituated. Yeah, the easy way to go is grab the McDonald's.
Right.
So there's a question in there somewhere. So if you can find what that question is, take it and run with it.
It's a matter of why, right? And we always talk about, oh man, my why. But let me ask you a real honest question. You want to lose weight. Okay. Why do you want to lose weight? And that's where it stops. Oh, I just want to feel better. That ain't going to cut it.
Yeah.
You telling me you just want to feel better ain't going to cut it. Let's go 7 levels deep. Let's ask why you want to feel better. And why is that important? And why is that? You see, you start really awakening before you start changing, because you can't change without awakening. There's no discount on greatness. I was sitting in a drive-through when I was overweight, starting my weight loss journey, when I had a Honda Odyssey minivan. We got 4 kids. My wife and I drive around this clunker. I'm running a construction business. I don't have any money, but I'm doing the do, right? I have a decision at that point. The door falls off the track. And the owner comes over to me as I'm holding this door up in front of a string of traffic. I'm in sheer embarrassment, and gives me a $10 gift card. Says, I'm really sorry about that. I stuck that in my wallet, and I keep it there to this day, 3 years later. Anytime I'm having self-doubt, I pull that card out and I remind myself, there is no discount on greatness. But the problem with that is that's a cliche statement until you can truly be awakened to the fact that you have so much greatness in you that is driven, divine, and a purpose that only you're set forth to do, that no one can do like you. Because when you have substance, it drives you. It's then your driver.
Last but not least, Josh, there's a saying that Dennis Waitley taught me years ago. We're planting seeds under trees that we may never sit under. And in my own life, with the good habits and the bad habits, of course, with experience, I can look back and see who planted those seeds, whether it was my father giving me a jacket with no pockets, or my best friend Rob telling me I'm lying to myself, or my wife telling me she wasn't happy, to all of a sudden say, shit, but it wasn't just one incident. It was a variety of things, and that consistent relationship that you have with your clients, the accountability partner that you need to consistently plant seeds, knowing that, if I had $1 for every time I've said the exact same things to my children, I'd be even richer than I am, right?
Yeah.
But I know I'm planting seeds every time I tell them, show me your friends and I'll show you your future.
Bingo.
Yeah.
Right. Show me your friends. And I keep repeating it. How important is it, or what seeds were planted to you that had the greatest impact? I listed a few in mine with my transformation that occurred for the bad behavior that I was utilizing. For you, were there, 1 or 2 or 3 seeds that were planted before you got I'm sure you didn't just get the gift card out of nowhere and say, oh shit, I'm gonna lose 300 pounds. Right. What were some of those seeds, and how do you, or what methodology do you use to plant those seeds?
Man, that's a powerful question. Community, seeing the importance of surroundings. I love what you said. Show me your surroundings. I'll show you your future, or who you hang out with. I mean, it's so valid. I mean, you're the sum of the 5 people you hang out with. And I tell people, this is probably one of the greatest seeds that I have. One is actual authentic relationship, but that community support. Okay. So I'll leave you with this. The last 4 messages on your phone, I want you to look at them. Everybody on here at some point today, look at the last 4 messages, Messenger, Facebook, text, whatever. Are those 4 people challenging you to level up or pulling you back? They better be challenging you to level up, because you're going to be the 5th of those 4 people you hang out with. And that's my biggest seed, is community. Because David, you were spot on. When you actually put yourself in a circle of people that are winning and like-minded, you become a winner.
You nailed it, my friend. Josh Hicks, what a great interview. Great advice, and you can see why you're one of the top health coaches in the world. And also, we didn't mention, but Josh went from 300 and some pounds or 60 pounds overweight to a first place bodybuilding competition championship in October of 19, and has probably considerably moved forward from there even. So you can do it out there. We just got to go ahead and have that DAY in our lives, the new day resolutions, consistent, persistent behavior. Enjoy that. Enjoy the consistent, persistent behavior like Josh Hicks can teach you and create a community for you. Josh, come back and visit again. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. Have
Josh,
a great day.
love meeting you. Great stuff.
Yeah, great interview, man. Yeah. I love when you get a guy who really knows his stuff, and every answer, there's nuggets in there, and you're like, whoa, I love the way he says that. And I want to point out, I love the way he says that, because you get to a point, especially Blaine, who's my mentor, I'm sure he's like, well, I've heard that concept 50 times, but I've never heard it said that way. What a great way to convey it or articulate it. That's the way I felt when I talked with Josh, that he had an extraordinary way of articulating a lot of the lessons that I've learned or I teach myself. And I saw you taking notes. I see people in the side repeating the way that he articulated it, which is really important, because it's not what you say, as Lou Holtz taught me as well. It's what they hear. And if you can articulate things so eloquently like Josh, we'll all be better off. All right, we have our next guest in our great lineup today, Ruben Flores-Martinez, founder and CEO of CashDrop.
Hi, David. Hi, Blaine. How are you guys?
Hey, Ruben. Great to meet you.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, no problem, my friend. Well, there's an evolution in hospitality, and one of those is, the food truck industry, the pop-up industry, being able to serve with mobility and high quality, unique, authentic foods. It's extraordinary business, but there came challenges, especially in the merchant service side of things, the credit card processing things, the payment things. If you're taking cash or in a mobile situation, there's a security issue. What was it that inspired you to create CashDrop?
So, it's interesting. When we launched the company, it was right at the beginning of the pandemic, and we had kind of built the product just a few months before, and we kind of launched with this idea of convenience. Right? It's like, how do you make it easier for restaurants and food trucks and hospitality providers to make it more convenient for people to order, right? And lo and behold, the pandemic hits a few months later, and all of a sudden everything's locked down. So then we kind of pivoted to this issue of safety, right? Like, how do you make it more safe, right, for staff and for customers to be able to communicate with one another, to transact with one another, right, while kind of keeping this ethos of convenience, right, making it faster. And that was really what inspired, the company. We wanted to make it really easy for people to be able to place orders from a restaurant, get a text when their order was waiting for them. They could just show up. There was a bag with their name on it, and they could move on. And it's not necessarily a new idea, but it was an idea that was very expensive and out of reach for the majority of mom and pop shop restaurants around the country, right? Like, you hear all the stories online about, delivery companies taking huge cuts from, the profit margins of restaurants and so on. So we wanted to make the technology accessible, right? Something that any restaurant can download an app for free, set up their menu, launch their online ordering page, and there was no commissions or monthly fees charged to them, right? What we wanted to do is we'll provide the service and at a small convenience fee on the consumer side, knowing that we were, putting all the pressure away from the merchants so that they can really focus on selling, providing the best experience possible. And kind of seeing what that sparked was really interesting, because people were able to adopt the technology really fast, make sure that their business operations weren't disrupted. But it also inspired a lot of people to start a business. You had a lot of people that had an idea for many months, like, perhaps I have a family recipe for barbecue or for these types of tacos, right? Like, and I don't know how to get started, start taking online orders or start that business, from my house or from from wherever. And people just started launching businesses. And ultimately that became our mission, right? Like how do you enable as many people as possible to be able to launch those business ideas that they have by making it really, really easy for them to get started in just a few minutes without any cost. So it's been a really awesome journey for the last 2 years.
And it has been 3 years. I mean, I'm interested, Ruben, as you kind of look at where you've come from. There's a differentiator that has allowed you to be as successful as you are right now, because processing is not a new that is not a new niche.
Right.
What would you say is the key differentiator in how you're coming to market that has people standing up and going, that's interesting?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's the simplest of things. I think like technology, a lot of times we get carried up with the features and like the grand scheme of things, but a lot of times it's about these very simple human issues. And for us, our differentiator is that we want to be the most merchant-friendly company in the market, right? Like we want to make it easy, accessible, and that's really what we focused on. And lo and behold, when you really study a lot of these industries, like the hospitality industry, there's a really negative relationship that exists between them and technology. Look at the relationship they have with DoorDash and with Uber Eats and with all these platforms. And again, it's nothing high tech. It's just the approach that the technology companies have, right, when they approach the people they serve, which are the restaurants. So I think the fee structure was really the big differentiator to say, look, we're going to remove the pressure, focus on providing value, right? And we make money when you make money. And I think that story is really what resonated to help people not only use the product, but tell each other about it. And here we are.
Really, go ahead, Dave. Yeah. No,
go ahead.
The book you and I wrote, Compassionate Capitalism. One of the predicates, one of the foundational messages there is that the purpose of business is to uplift the experience of being alive on the planet. That's the purpose of business, uplift the experience of being alive on the planet. If you're doing that well, you're going to have people knocking on your door. Right. So what I'm hearing you say for what you've done for the merchants is they feel good about how do they feel about themselves when they're in the presence of your product or your service? They feel like they can win. They feel like they've now got an opportunity. I feel good about me. I'm uplifted. That's a differentiator, and being able to tap into it in the way that you've done that. Because, I mean, credit card processing, it's ubiquitous. But to your point, it's onerous. I mean, I got to pay 3% or 1.5 or whatever it is. Yeah, that's right. That's top line. Yeah,
right.
It comes right off.
It's an old, boring, and scary industry for most, right? So we wanted to make it more approachable for the next generation of businesses, right? Particularly during this very, very difficult period with the pandemic, right? Like what happens after, right? Because so many businesses have to shut down, but I feel like we do believe that with all this death comes this giant wave of rebirth. And what are we doing to empower that next generation to make it easier and easier and easier so we can not only bounce back from where we were, but actually get further, right? And I think that's the approach that you need to do it. And it just completely takes a new perspective on the issue, on what are you doing to empower merchants from a technology perspective, but understanding the economical implications that technology can bring to different industries, right? The cost of doing business with tech sometimes prevents the majority of people from actually being able to leverage it. And then you have this concentration of power and access, that's only reserved for the top tier of restaurants and chains, right? Like how do you bring that Starbucks level experience to the mom and pop shops of the world? And what happens when we actually do? That's what keeps us up at night.
You talk about uplifting the experience of our customers, of this human journey that we're on, but we have so many different customers, from vendors to employees to the consumer itself, but also our investors. And our key to equity and inclusion is financing. Making sure that we're empowering with equity. We're empowering, the inner city kids. We're with finance. We're empowering entrepreneurs of all colors, sizes, shapes, religions, sexual orientation. All the different things that we need to do. And one of the areas that is lacking is our Latin community,
Right.
funding them appropriate. And I want to give a big shout out to one of my friends, David Grutman, who's one of the lead investors for your project. And
Yes.
you're one of the under 2% of Latin entrepreneurs that have been financed, to a significant amount, millions of dollars, for this project. How important is it to be capitalized? And beyond the money, what other values do your key investors, which you have some, world-renowned investors in your project, what do they do? And how can we encourage more people like David Grutman to join into this mission of equity and inclusion by financing everyone?
Yeah, I love that you brought up Dave. He's one of my favorite humans on earth, and
Me too.
I think David Grutman represents what the future of the venture industry really looks like, right? Dave is not a venture capitalist, right? Like, he built this hospitality empire from scratch, right? And he built this gigantic network of people that know and love him. And I feel like we're starting to get to this point, where there's a level in the industry where capital is not so much more as powerful as relationships can be, right? Like, there's a level where network and relationships can open doors that money can't buy you. But I think you have to get to that point to be able to leverage, and take advantage of that, which is where you go back to the issue of capital. It's still a very crucial piece of the journey. And I learned this the hard way being a Latino founder, right? Like, I learned the hard way that only less than 1% of venture dollars go to Black and Latino founders, and it's 2021, right? Like, when I started my journey with CashDrop, right, it always felt like I had to work twice as hard to get half as far, right? And it's a real issue, and it's something that I'm very outspoken about. But I feel like it's also something that reinforces my positions of how I think about what the company needs to do for the people we serve, right? We bootstrapped. When we got a lot of traction, we were making money. We tried to go fundraise, and nobody would pay attention to us, right? And it wasn't so much that the idea wasn't there. We were profitable. We were making money. We were growing really fast, it almost felt like people just didn't want to take the time to pay attention and actually listen or read the numbers, right? And it's not even a unique story that I have as a Latino founder, and it just kind of, it reinforced me to double down on the bootstrapping. I said, fuck it. I'm just going to keep going. I'm going to keep building, making money, right? If I make this many transactions, I make this much money, I can cover the rent, and I can hire employees. Like, I just think about that. And that's what got us to this point, right? I think there's a tipping point where the tables turn and you meet the right people with the right investors. And, next thing you know, we went from nobody would fund us to now we have some of the, the seed investors in Uber and Instacart, in, Niantic and SpaceX wanting to invest, throwing us a term sheet within hours of meeting us, right? So I think my personal goal now just becomes like, how can I help other founders that share my experience have a similar path, but faster, right? Like, my personal goal is, how do I help that next Ruben get 10 times faster, 10 times, and make it 10 times bigger, right? Like, that's how you compound value within your own community. And I think, what I've learned about that now, looking back and being able to be in a position where I'm at, it's like, I need to be able to introduce the next Ruben to the Dave Grutmans of the world faster than ever before. I need to become that springboard of networking. So, you can really get people to this point where they realize and have the ability to make these higher decisions about their businesses and create a higher level of impact. But it's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take a lot of founders like me that have made it. But, how do you kind of do that when it's hard to kind of make it to this point? So it's like a chicken and egg problem going on a little bit. But I think there's a lot of minority founders out there that I think the same way that I do. And we're trying our best to make sure that we can lower that barrier of entry and, provide as many seats at the table as we can.
Well, we'll tell you that it's so important, Ruben, which is why I wanted to shout out David and a few of my other friends that have invested in your deal. Because in 1999, when I was on Sand Hill Road myself, raising hundreds of millions of dollars, I remember someone say to me, I can't believe it's 1999 and less than 1% of investment goes to women, people of color, Latins, less than 1%. And they were saying it, like, I can't believe, we're so enlightened here in 1999. We need to put our money into the communities, into the people, so that we have a more collective, abundant atmosphere economically. And this is what occurs when you have inclusion and equity, by having all types of people with all types of perspectives helping one another, like you said. And, David Grutman, myself, we all don't look alike. We didn't come from the same places, but we're creating abundance. And it is entrepreneurs like you that will, not only change the world, but save the world. And these are how we address social issues, in my opinion, is through finance.
I agree.
Support.
It all goes down to the money at the end of the day. Money is what creates results for communities, right? Like, and I think that, you want to get to that point, but also you want to only be doing business with people that believe in the same version of the world you're working so hard to build. You don't want to sell yourself short, because it leads to a lot of problems. And I've seen that many, many times. So, relationships is really what makes the world go round. One of my mentors once told me, Ruben, it's not about who you know, it's about who knows you. When you make a good impact in people, right, and they remember your name, like, that's what opens doors. And, we just have to be, there's a lot of work to be done to kind of help. But like I said, the face of the venture industries, it's changing. There's a lot of capital in the market. There's no shortage of capital. There's a shortage of access to the people that have capital, and for them to see, what the next generation of entrepreneurs are. And I think, like, for the first 20, 30 years of the internet, we kind of built for this community that was kind of like, in the more advanced type of region. And I think we've overlooked a lot of the communities that were like in the developing side, right? But I feel like the next 20, 30 years of the internet belongs to those communities, the people that have been overlooked, the people that, hadn't caught up by then. And now I think it's like founders that are coming from those communities that understand those perspectives, that are the ones that are going to create the next sizable impact and returns for the next 20 years. So in a way, it's kind of like our era right now. We just have to be able to find the capital that is going to compound benefits to the communities we want to impact, right? Like, I always, you always read the stories, like when there's companies like Lyft or Uber, they go public and millionaires are minted out of nowhere, right? You're talking hundreds of them. It's like, and I always think about this. This is the things that I obsess about sometimes. Like, what happens since, cashdrop goes public on the NASDAQ, and all of a sudden our first 200 employees become millionaires? Like, what happens to those communities? Because I've been working so hard to create one of the most diverse tech companies in the market. Like, what's going to happen when that happens? Like, I'm really excited to see that. And we're working so hard to make that, but also always keeping that, that ambition in line with the purpose we're here to provide for the mom and pop shop businesses, for the entrepreneurs that are just getting started, because we need to practice what we preach. Because in that side, I think when you really not only create a business that can make money, you create a movement, you create a brand, because that's what really gets people attached to what you're doing. Like, people don't care about features or apps. They care about stories. They care about movements. They care about purpose. And I think that when you really align everything from the investors to the values to the features of your product, everything starts moving in tandem. And I think that that's where history happens. And that's it.
Now, Ruben, you need to get a little bit more excited and passionate about this.
Well, Ruben, I was going to say too.
Out of focus here.
That's okay, Ruben.
You made me fuzzy.
I love it, Ruben. Because I'm hoping there's young Latin women and men who are looking at you, saying, "Man, if this guy can do it,
right,
I can do it." And I always said one of my greatest powers in life is I've set the bar really low, meaning people look at me and they're like, "Man, if this clown can do it, I can do it." Right. And that's what I want people to say. I want people that don't look like me to say, "Man, if this guy can do it, I can do it." I appreciate you being that icon, that milestone for the youth, especially with your perspective. I know why David Grutman and others invested in you and in your idea. Like, it's very obvious, no one thought that this was a unique space, but yet you are a unique entrepreneur, and there's many like you out there that need our support. So thank you so much. Check out Cash Drop. Check out Ruben himself. Come back and visit us. We got many more shows. Love to give you more exposure and awareness, especially, I'm a chief chancellor with Blaine in the Junior Achievement University, and we have a very diverse and equitable inclusion now from the days when I was a junior achievement kid and there was only white males in the program, and now we're over 50% women and over 30% minorities. So it's beautiful. Our future is looking bright, so that someday someone's not sitting there on 2040 saying, I can't believe it's 2040 and less than 1% of the money is going to minorities. So we appreciate you. You were a perfect timed interview as well, because I see Dr. Loren Martin is in the green room now, so it's perfect.
Good, perfect.
Say hi to David Grutman for me. Keep
Will
up
do.
the great work and keep empowering others with your actions. I appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate the time.
Ruben, great having you on the show.
Great
Thank
having
you,
you, my
Blaine.
friend. Thank you.
Take care.
All right.
Wow.
We'll see here. Maybe not.
Dr. Martin.
Well, let's start with the takeaway for the day, and if we can get Dr. Loren Martin's video working, we'll bring for a question real quick. But what's your takeaway for the day, Blaine?
A real simple one, and it has to do with relationship. And I don't mean interpersonal relationship, although that's part of it. One of the relationship that people have with fill in the blank. The quality of the relationship determines the success of any undertaking. And I was really struck by one of the things that Ruben said right at the very end, and he said it so fast that it didn't kind of pop out for many people, I don't think. But he talked about when we're being successful and when we're chasing the capital is necessary to keep the business alive here. We've got to be mindful, and this is the relationship. We've got to be mindful of keeping the purpose of who we are in front of the chase for the capital. Because if we lose that relationship to who we are, it becomes a house of cards. And
I love that.
That's all three of our guests in some way, shape, or form talked about the quality of the relationship. Whether it was community, whether it was how I go to market, whether it's the relationship I have with security, any of those sorts of things. But I always will come back as a default to the quality of the relationship in some way, shape, or form. That's kind of how I sort.
Wow, amazing. Well, we will bring on, in between my takeaway and yours, Dr. Loren Martin, playing in a space again of health. Just to reiterate, when we're healthy, we get as many wishes as we want, and when we're unhealthy, we only have one wish. And one of the most challenging health issues we have is mental health, because how do we deal with perspective? And I think a lot of people don't simplify mental health of the duality of the challenge. When you break your arm, there's only one issue to deal with, right? Mending the bone. But when we have mental health, there's two issues to deal with. One, what's the broken bone here? But also, how do I deal with your perspective to fix the bone? Because there's a duality within the context of our conscious, subconscious, and unconscious mind. And Dr. Martin takes this perspective with Alter Health Group in mental health research and treatment analysis. He's located right by me in Dana Point. But, this idea of neurodivergent people, Doctor, really intrigues me. What does that actually mean? And am I on some sort of the right alignment or path of this divergent idea of we're dealing with a duality of perspective and of illness, just not an illness? And I know you may even have a question for Blaine and I that we can help you with.
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly with the COVID-19 pandemic, we've seen a pandemic within the pandemic in mental health, and there's been several studies that have now come out showing a rise in cases of major depressive disorder or even anxiety disorders, upwards of 30% rise year over year, which also coincides with a 30% rise in overdose deaths. So, it's clearly an issue that we need to address, and where, everyone I think is trying to address. I know you mentioned like the breaking of a bone and that type of injury. Well, coinciding often with those injuries is a mental health condition, right? Because someone is not able to do what they were able to do previously. In terms of neurodivergence, this is a term that really came out of the studies of autism and developmental disorders, in recognition of there are perhaps different pathways and wiring within the brain in which people think differently than other people. And actually, Dr. Temple Grandin was one of the first to champion this idea of someone who has an autism spectrum disorder who thinks differently, and her book Thinking in Pictures as an example.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think Jim Quick is a good example of how to actually.
Great. I was just thinking of that.
Utilize neurodivergence in understanding his own brain as he's had challenges as a young boy, and learned to utilize his brain in an appropriate manner to change other people's lives. But Doctor, do you have a question for Blaine and I?
Yeah, I'm really interested with the Unstoppable Foundation. I commend you with the work that is being done there. I mean, that looks really incredible. And I was looking at the pillars that you have, and in particular, one of the pillars stood out, and that's healthcare, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And I was wondering, because oftentimes we have developed a model of healthcare that unfortunately doesn't really embrace mental health care as much as it needs to, right? And I think we're starting to shift that paradigm and recognize that, well, actually, it needs to be a holistic healthcare, and mental health care is an important component to that. Wondering if you could speak a little bit about, embracing mental health care as part of that model.
Mm-hmm.
Blaine, you want to go first, or you want?
Yeah, I'll jump into that question. And full disclaimer, I'm on the board of the foundation, and as is David. David's actually the chair of the board, and I'm also married to the founder of the organization. So, I'm not a disinterested party here. That being said, the healthcare pillar has been a profoundly important part of the work that the foundation does. And one of the things that we've begun doing, and we started this a couple of years ago, is taking a large focus on leadership development through our Leadership Academy initiatives. And part and parcel of that, and this is kind of how I bring it together with the healthcare pillar, is the leadership conversation and the leadership work we do is really about attitudinal healing. That's one of the major drivers that we're bringing into place with that. Some of the work that Jerry Jampolsky championed, the idea of attitude, which is a mental construct. How do we actually facilitate a healthy attitude that can enable overcoming obstacles, overcoming some of the perturbation that we find out in some of these areas in which we work. So, the idea, it's holistic. So there is a melding that's going on. It's not just medical services through a hospital, ambulatory care, that sort of thing. It really is expanded. It's not labeled as such, but there is that that weaving that's going on, with the work the foundation's doing.
Yeah, and as chairman of the foundation, as I've been told, committed for life. I became the interim chairman years and years ago, and then after years of service, Cynthia, Blaine's wife, told me that interim meant this lifetime. She didn't make me commit for my next life yet. But the incredible
that's why we're meeting on Saturday.
Yeah, it goes beyond, though, just the hospitals that we've built and the healthcare in the schools. We have a school for healthcare as well, which obviously is inclusive of mental health, which is obvious within the healthcare industry, that even in Kenya, in the Masai Mara, what we're doing. But the colleges and high schools with the attitudinal curriculum that goes beyond, it goes to the world thought leaders. We're blessed and unstoppable. The contributors to our attitudinal education system, people like Bob Proctor, Mary Morrissey, Jack Canfield, Blaine Bartlett, these are world thought leaders that the students may not even know the names of in America. We know these world thought leaders, and the blessings that they've given. And then, the final piece was one that my wife inspired me on my 50th birthday, which is how the foundation was founded on Cynthia's. Although she looks much younger than me, on her 50th birthday years ago, I won't say how many, this is how the foundation was formed. We raised money for a community center. And part of my wife's inspiration for me to do this 50 for 50, which was really difficult, 50 birthday parties in a year, to be on that many times and blow out that many candles is not easy. But more importantly, this community center we were losing one of the most important parts of the community. For so many years, our charity was trying to break the chains of some of, the terrible cultural, things that were occurring over, centuries. But now we were losing some of the positive traditions, and we needed to bring in the mental health aspect, the attitudinal and perspective, support that a grandparent, even though, my grandfather, I do not want to quote the things, and he was one of the purest heart, died at 97, but he was born in 1913. So the language that he used is not language that I can use today, and he had no bad intention. But I think it was so important, and my wife was just, so enlightened to say, hey, we need to bring the good part of the grandparents into this mental side of things, because you probably know better than I do, doctor, that, my grandparents played an integral role in my mental health. We both had a common enemy, number one, which made it really nice. Called my parents. But it was nice to have someone to talk to, right? And that's what, one of the great, and I know Blaine's a grandparent himself, that his grandchildren definitely talk to him differently than they talk to Blaine's own children. So, without a doubt, it's a major point for not only us at Unstoppable, but for everyone around the world. And we appreciate all the effort and work that you're doing. You're so close to us. We'll have to get together in person. I'm just right up the hill from you there, in San Juan Capistrano. So we're looking over you, making sure you're safe there on the ocean.
That'd be terrific.
Awesome.
Love to
Thank
have
you
the
so
meeting.
much. Take
All right,
care.
appreciate it.
Take care.
Thank you, guys.
Great work.
Your takeaway, David.
Yeah, I went a little bit over today. It's 6:03. I'm a time freak, but it's interesting because my takeaway of the day is each of these individuals. You forget what we were talking about in the beginning. With like ridiculous people that come on here, Grant Gibson, and what he's doing to protect us again. An ex-Marine, a vet, and then gosh, we've had thousands of guests, by the way, and Josh Hicks, he in his lessons and stories, and of course Ruben in his lessons and stories, and even Dr. Loren Martin, these lessons and stories. My takeaway for the day is that we all have lessons and stories, but some of us can articulate them to resonate with more of us. 10% of the people will love everything that Blaine says. He could sit on my show and say, well, and everyone will go, oh my God, I love Blaine. He's a genius. And 10% of the people, unfortunately, are not going to like Blaine. His frequency is going to be like Tabasco in a wound. But how well he can articulate the lessons and stories of his life will determine how much the 80% resonates and learns and hears the lessons and stories. And hopefully, at the very least, they plant seeds under trees that Blaine and I may never sit under, but still impact and empower the world. learn.blainebartlett.com/DAY, empowering and impacting the world with his lessons and stories. I appreciate you. Even though 10% of the people don't like us, the other 90% hopefully love us. And I appreciate all you do to be up early and on our show.
Oh, hey, we're in good company with each other. So, I'm doing a webinar tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. and design a year that designed you in return. It's free. Come on down. That's the site that you can register for it. So, and you got a show tomorrow morning.
I will say, people ask me, where do I learn my shit? Right there. So I hear what you say. Join that webinar. You will not regret it. I do my free trainings every Friday. If you need to make the choice which one, I record mine. So go ahead, join Blaine, and then check the replay on the podcast. We have Blaine. We're getting to over 60,000 people registered for my free training, almost on 22 years. 22 years of doing it, not counting Instagram Live and TikTok Live. All the other places, LinkedIn, that it goes out to. So I just want to thank everyone. This week's training, by the way, is overlap agreement, how to codify, memorialize referrals. And it's become a 7-figure business for me, all because of a simple document. And I'm going to work through teaching people how to use the document, how to create a network of people giving business to each other and monetize it. And then answer questions as well. So make sure you join tomorrow. What time is your webinar, Blaine?
10 a.m. Pacific.
Perfect.
10 a.m. Pacific.
And
there will be a replay. So yeah,
I will talk about it on my training, because I think my training is at 6 a.m. Pacific. So you know me, I'm off. Oh no, 7 a.m. Pacific. Is that right, Matt? Is that why you're holding up 7 figures? All right, 7 a.m. Matt says. So it took me 6 years to teach the kid. Very good, Matt. We'll get to 10 by next year. So we're doing well.
There you go.
This many, Dave. This many. All
This
right.
many. This many.
Send my love to Cynthia. Thank you. learn.blainebartlett.com/DAY. 10 a.m. Pacific time tomorrow. Join the webinar. Design your own life. Utilize the new day resolutions in order to do so. Blaine, I love you, my friend. I'll talk to you soon.
Love you too, buddy. Take care.
Right on.
Bye.
Bye-bye. All right. I'm here at CES, the Consumer Electronics Show, just dealing with the adaptation of how COVID is affecting one of the largest shows in the world. And it's amazing how much you still get done. There's so many great people out there that I want to thank, especially Blaine. Tomorrow's training, 7 a.m. Please join me. Join Blaine at 10 a.m. We have so much content here for free, just to be of service and of value to you. Remember, though, if you do want my new day resolutions, which goes really well with his webinar, david@dmeltzer.com. If you want to get a pre-look at the overlap agreement for tomorrow's training, david@dmeltzer.com. Created a 7-figure business by just simply memorializing, helping people and driving business to them and asking them to help drive business to me. david@dmeltzer.com. But most importantly, thank you, Matthew Mendoza. Be kind to your future self and do good deeds. We'll see you tomorrow.